TW my 24M fiancee 20F had a months-long affair with her student 42M and wants to rebuild our relationship. It's bad IMO. Don't read if this stuff triggers you. Content warning: infidelity, trauma, manipulation, and concerning relationship dynamics. I need assistance processing a devastating situation that has shattered my world. This will be lengthy, but I must share everything to make sense of it. First, I want to clarify that I am not seeking judgment regarding her actions. Her friends, my friends, and our families are already doing enough of that. I do not need it from Reddit as well. I simply want advice on how to proceed, any relevant experiences, and to express everything that's on my mind. I will attempt to explain what transpired. Please forgive me if I become too personal, as I am still trying to process this. I hope that this post and the advice I receive will aid in that process. I apologize if I provide excessive detail. I believe I have included everything, but I will edit if I realize I have omitted anything. I found out that my fiancée was unfaithful to me due to photographs on her computer. They showed extensive bruising on her breasts. She attempted to claim that it was from the shower and her scrubbing vigorously. However, when I inquired about it over text, I learned that, since it was on Google Photos, she had screenshotted it to send to the person she was having an affair with, and she also screenshotted her conversation with him, in which she stated, "I'm going to use the shower excuse and just say I did it to myself," while her lover expressed concern that I might discover the truth. When she returned home, she had gifts she had purchased for me, and I confronted her. It was then that she revealed she had been cheating on me for months with this man and that they had engaged in sexual activities during that time. Initially, she tried to place the blame on me, citing my poor communication while we were in a long-distance relationship, and alleged that I failed to meet her romantic needs. I was extremely busy with work at that time, which she was aware of, but she did not care. She became upset with me for being hurt and angry, mocking me during a call with him several times for crying, ridiculing my speech impediment, and telling him how she felt no love or affection for me whatsoever and would have preferred I did not visit at all. She has shown little to no remorse or willingness to improve herself to reassure me that she is no longer seeing him, apart from simply saying, "I'm not with him," which could easily be another lie and fails to convince me of her sincerity. Over time, I have managed to obtain the full account from her, and this is how I understand the situation based on the evidence I have collected. My fiancé started tutoring English in September. Her student was a 42-year-old Pakistani man who worked in a different department at her university, and what began as professional lessons gradually evolved through subtle changes. The first session was a basic assessment, and the second focused on pronunciation for Urdu speakers. When he mentioned feeling isolated in a new country, she offered him emotional support beyond professional boundaries. This eventually led to restaurant practice for his anxiety about ordering coffee, which then transitioned to watching movies for English practice. A bit of context about my fiancée: she has a history of trauma from past relationships where she experienced infidelity and abuse. I was the first partner who treated her with respect, and she often conveyed how fortunate she felt to have found me. This history seems to have impacted her ability to recognize troubling behaviors in this situation. During a visual poetry movie session, she experienced eye pain from her glasses and laid on a cushion between them. During a romantic scene, he held her hand. Initially, she told him not to and mentioned me, but they continued watching the movie anyway. She developed feelings for him after their third meeting, but initially dismissed them as a desire for attention. By their second visit to his apartment, they kissed. Although she informed him about our engagement, rather than ending things, they decided to casually date. Their physical relationship began in mid-November. This included extensive groping and leaving hickeys on her that remained for over a month. They were quite severe. She claimed they involved teeth and were painful. What started as intimate touching escalated to full intimacy by November 23rd. She informed him that if he accompanied her to a folk fair, he could do whatever he wanted. He, of course, requested vaginal sex. She kept asking him if he was certain as they went to get condoms, but he never changed his mind, and they ended up being intimate multiple times that evening. Shortly after this occurred, likely while he was lying in bed with her, she messaged me to express her love for me. I still have that text, and it pains me every time I see it now that I have the context. All her texts hurt because the entirety of her love now feels so hollow in light of what I am about to describe. Over the subsequent month and a half, they had 15-20 encounters. He was often aggressive and demanding, and when she was uncomfortable with full intimacy, she would perform oral sex on him to soothe him. Due to his smaller size information I did not want to know, he also engaged in anal intercourse with her. Additionally, there were 2 instances without protection, one where he finished on the front of her vagina and another where he finished inside her. It's indeed troubling. He has photographs of some of these interactions. She likely did not keep any on her phone to avoid the chance of me discovering them. She asked him if he looked at the photos of them frequently, and I have doubts that they were innocent based on the nature of their relationship. I have not seen them. This is merely an assumption. She has made unnecessary comparisons that have only intensified my pain, such as mentioning that while he occasionally touched certain spots, he never lasted long enough to be satisfying, or how his fluid tasted better than mine. She maintains that intimacy with me was significantly better overall, which makes this betrayal even more bewildering. These encounters occurred at both apartments, including hers, filled with gifts I had given her throughout our relationship. She was able to have sexual relations with him surrounded by memories we had created together. That is incredibly painful. During my visits, she would constantly message him, even during our dates and outings, and she even asked me to drive her to meet him. After I returned to England, she invited him over right away. They made out, he left marks on her inner thighs, and he spent the night. I called during an intimate moment and heard her moaning his name before she abruptly hung up. She attempted to cover it up by staging photos of them separately on the couch and pretending he had left. He would regularly ask her if she was sleeping in a different room from me and whether I was not intimate with her, etc. I detest the fact that he presumed to make such demands of me, but he did it nonetheless. We both dismissed them entirely, as you will see later. Her previous trauma made it difficult for her to recognize his coercive behaviors as abusive. He would buy her gifts after arguments and tried to win her back. I was present during one of the instances of sexual assault, or rather, I was in her apartment while she was at his. She returned completely distraught and visibly traumatized. He had spent an hour forcing himself on her, tearing off her clothes while she repeatedly shouted, "No." He entirely disregarded her and ultimately had sex with her. He claimed that he did not want me, her fiancé, to prevail. She was utterly broken. Yet, even with all of that, and the incidents of violence from the past, she refuses to acknowledge it as sexual assault and will not file a police report, as she does not want it to ruin his life. There were 2 final meetings, one where she intended to break up, but refrained from telling him and rejected intimacy, which led to an attempted assault. The second involved cooking dinner and returning belongings, but ended in a similar manner. Despite these events, when he left items at her door, clearly intending to create more contact, she still wanted him to collect them personally. She has completely concealed the fact that I had sexual relations with her many times while I was there. Admittedly, part of my motivation was anger, but there was still considerable love involved at that time. I slept with her every night for about 3 weeks, sometimes multiple times a day. Yes, I would finish inside her, which was foolish of me, I admit, and partly I wanted to ensure that her experience with me would always overshadow her experience with him. The unfortunate part is that I also felt she owed it to me considering what she had done. Reflecting on it now, that was not the best mindset, but I did not care, and she accepted it, sometimes even encouraged it. She is always willing to say no, which I respect. There is something about me not being abusive, so she feels comfortable expressing that. A brief pause to share something to lift my spirits. I have now developed a technique that leads her to climax during sex. I worked on it during the trip and achieved success twice in a row, and nothing can compare to that feeling, trust me, even though I thought I might be overwhelmed. Returning to the subject, she knew that he would abandon her and cease all communication if he knew I had been even slightly intimate with her, as it would damage his honor. It is a cruel thing to say, considering what he did to my fiancé, but that is in the past now. At least I like knowing that she cannot be honest with him either. Otherwise, that relationship will likely fail as well. I also have his number and could disrupt that relationship at any time. While I wouldn't act on that now due to the current circumstances, I certainly could. I have ample proof from the trip, if you understand what I mean. I also possess evidence, including her own statements that he raped her, and given his position, I could ruin his life, get him fired from his job, arrested, and deported. I won't do that, but I recognize that I could. Now, 2 weeks later, she claims to have ended things with him and wishes to gradually rebuild our relationship, starting with friendship, then dating, and eventually resuming our engagement. She asserts that God is, slapping her with signs, indicating that I am her destiny and that I should remain strong through these challenges. Her proposal to restore trust includes sharing locations and installing cameras in her apartment. The emotional toll has become unbearable. While I comprehend her past trauma, I am still struggling to grasp what truly occurred and why. It is incredibly confusing to me, especially given that she acknowledges that I, as a partner, am the better choice. What should I do in this situation? Does anyone have experiences or advice that could assist me? I would genuinely appreciate any support that could help me navigate through this, regardless of whether I choose to stay or leave. Summary: my fiancé engaged in an affair with her English student for several months, involving both physical intimacy and emotional attachment. Despite these troubling dynamics and multiple incidents, she wishes to rebuild our relationship, starting from friendship. Story 2. Is this love that I am feeling? F24M30. Opinions needed. First of all, hello. This is my first time posting, so I'm hoping for some sincere, non-judgmental guidance. This will be a lengthy post, but I want to ensure I express everything clearly, so please bear with me. I'm seeking impartial opinions from individuals who are unfamiliar with me. A little background about me: I've always been a sensitive person, but I don't excel at handling emotions. Even as a teenager, falling in love was challenging for me. However, when I do fall, I love intensely. In 2021, I faced a traumatic event that left me feeling numb for nearly 2 years, unable to experience emotions. After a lot of hard work, by summer 2024, I began to feel again, but I still struggle to comprehend my emotions. My mind also tends to dismiss negative feelings quickly, so I don't experience sadness as I used to. This contributes to my uncertainty about my feelings now. So, here's the situation. I met this guy in June 2024. We started out casually dating, not looking for anything serious, and we were very transparent about it. However, things escalated quickly, and within 2 months, we were spending every day together. Our energies just matched. I used to tell my friends it was like seeing myself in a man's body. Another thing about me is that I live alone and I'm quite antisocial. I value my space and time alone. I become uncomfortable spending extended periods of time with anyone, even those I love the most, and at times, I just can't wait to go home and be alone. With this person, however, that never happened. I never once felt the need to be alone, nor did I ever feel bored with him. I was beginning to be certain that I loved this guy. However, things changed after our first and only significant disagreement. It wasn't even a real fight, just a period where we both shut down emotionally and didn't communicate for 3 weeks. When we finally discussed our issues, we agreed to enhance our communication, and things improved afterward. They really did, because in the following months our communication flourished. It required consistent effort, but everything was going so well. Following that, we were inseparable. So he, unofficially, moved in. For almost 3 months now, we've been living together. But despite everything going extremely well, even better than before, that feeling of definitively loving him didn't fully return. So I began questioning myself: am I wasting our time? Then something that truly hurt me occurred. It was my birthday. For context, I had given him a small surprise at midnight for his birthday, complete with little thoughtful gifts that I had carefully selected. I'm not someone who places much value on gifts or surprises, and I had already told everyone not to get me anything, so I didn't expect a grand celebration. However, while we were lying together, he didn't even recall that it was my birthday until an hour after midnight. That really hurt me. I didn't need presents, but a simple, happy birthday would have meant a great deal. Additionally, this was the first birthday I had acknowledged in 4 years, as the traumatic event I previously mentioned was somewhat related to it, and he was aware of that. Somehow, I chose to overlook it. We talked about it and somewhat resolved things. Even now, I can't believe I let it slide. I've always been someone who prioritizes myself, and at the slightest sign of disrespect, I would have left. But this time, I didn't. And that made me question, am I doing this for someone I don't even love? This happened at the beginning of January. Since then, despite things apparently progressing well, I found myself focusing more on the negative aspects. I began to notice small things that irritated me. I had clearly expressed my dissatisfaction, understanding that changes would occur. These weren't significant issues, but they were important to me, elements that would make me feel more valued and appreciated. I indicated that I would really appreciate it if we went out more, on dates, etc. Not a single date or any type of outing occurred in a month. For instance, I have been telling him about a movie I've wanted to see for 2 months now, yet he never suggested we go to the cinema. I also communicated how hurtful it is when I travel for several hours, and he doesn't check in to see if I've arrived safely or inquire about my well-being. He mentioned he didn't realize it meant that much to me and didn't want to disturb me while I was on the road, but he assured me he would change that. However, when I traveled again, we hardly spoke for the 2 days I was away. At that moment, I realized he didn't care enough about my feelings to make even the minor adjustments I had requested. He listens, but doesn't genuinely hear me. Yes, he has said many wonderful things in the past month, how happy he is to have me in his life, how I inspire him to make positive changes, and how he's striving to be better for us. But his words and actions didn't align. I began to ponder, if this is how things are now, how will they be in the future? Wasn't this supposed to be our honeymoon phase, when everything feels effortless? So we talked. I expressed everything I needed to say and suggested that we end things. But then, he responded by saying all the right things, exactly what I needed to hear. We discussed everything calmly, conveyed our feelings, and explored potential solutions. His remarks were thoughtfully articulated, and our dialogue felt genuinely healthy and constructive. He was obviously determined to make things work, repeatedly assuring me that what we had was special and that he wasn't willing to let it go. However, when I requested a day or two to contemplate things, he completely lost control. He paced around my apartment, exclaiming things like, "I can't take this any longer," and "This is hurting me more than I anticipated." I had to leave for work and was already running late, so I told him we could talk afterward. But he began yelling, shouting that I was insensitive for not being late to work just to listen to him. He asked me while shouting if that was how I cared about him and about us. I froze in shock. I don't even remember his last words because I was so overwhelmed by his anger. He stormed out of my apartment, and I haven't heard from him since. Now, I don't even feel sadness. I just somewhat miss him. My apartment feels empty. But I'm questioning everything. Did I make the right choice? Did I push him away over minor issues? But are they truly minor if they are significant to me? Do I deserve better? People work through difficulties like this all the time, right? Are my standards too high, or have they become so low that I'm questioning them? Maybe he was the one. But if that's accurate, why do I feel this way? Why am I uncertain about my feelings? Was the peaceful at home, never get bored of you, can't wait to get home to you, sensation love? Or was it merely a habit? Thank you for reading. I would genuinely appreciate your thoughts on this. Reading it now, it sounds as if we're just some confused teenagers, but please help your sister out. Keep in mind that I've only had one relationship before this, and it was during the time I was emotionally numb, so I didn't have a genuine comparison to a normal relationship. I lack much prior experience to contrast feelings and situations. Story 3. Me, M27, and my partner, M28, are struggling to communicate about something that happened over 3 years ago when a straight friend, M29, made a move. This may turn out to be quite lengthy, but if anyone is willing to stay and read, I would genuinely appreciate the advice at this moment. This is a throwaway account, naturally. I will get straight to the point. I, male, 28, and my partner, whom I will refer to as John for the purposes of this post, have been together for 3.5 years. We have an incredible relationship and communicate very well on every topic except any mention of a friend, male, 29, whom I will name Patrick. When John and I began dating over 3 years ago, during our second or third date, I shared with him that a few weeks prior, a friend of mine had said something quite strange. The friend, Patrick, had approached me at the bar we were in and expressed something along the lines of, I love you so much it hurts sometimes. I just stared at him, feeling both uncomfortable and bewildered. He must have seen the expression on my face because then he quickly left the bar. I brushed it off, thinking it was just a friend being overly intoxicated and affectionate. That same night, during our second or third date, John and I were discussing our past experiences. Although he had been in a relationship with a woman throughout his 20s and had only recently come out, he did have some teenage experiences with other boys. Because I had very few experiences in my life, as I found it difficult to find someone I was fully attracted to, my insecurities led me to make my first mistake and tell a small lie. I mentioned to John that Patrick and I had hooked up as teenagers. The reality is we got drunk at a house party, and afterwards, Patrick tried to kiss me, but I pulled away and attempted to leave. Prior to that, our friendship could sometimes be perceived as flirty or suggestive, but nothing ever came of it. After he tried to kiss me, and I realized I wasn't interested in that way, my curiosity about him diminished rapidly, and he has since identified as straight. I only told John we kissed because I felt insecure about my lack of experiences and because we were already discussing Patrick. Fast forward a few weeks after that date. John meets my family, and I invite some friends, including Patrick and his partner, female, 28, whom I will refer to as Emily. I mainly invited Patrick to clarify that we are just friends and to avoid any awkwardness since I am good friends with Emily. Patrick arrives alone, gets drunk, and behaves oddly, being loudly messy and shouting my name repeatedly at one point while awkwardly standing in a corner when he walked in on John and me kissing. As I mentioned to family members about my past with Patrick, we made silly jokes over the years about him being gay, and I recounted what Patrick had said at the bar a few weeks earlier, because I thought it was strange and wanted some perspective. Others made comments to John, having noticed Patrick's odd behavior. They said things like, "Something happened years ago, but really, there's nothing to worry about now," or joked, "You have competition," inappropriate remarks to make to someone meeting their first male partner's family for the first time. John took me aside that evening and asked if anything was happening between Patrick and me. I laughed and assured him that there was nothing, and then asked for Patrick to be removed. Over the years, this became a recurring topic of argument. John would ask questions, and the more we discussed what transpired, the more awkward I became about it. I started to overthink, feeling the need to confront Patrick and expose him to Emily, not wanting to hurt her feelings. I didn't care about Patrick, but Emily had recently become engaged and had a child, and I didn't want to be the one to inform her that her partner was acting strangely with their gay friend. I felt utterly lost regarding how to manage the situation, so I avoided it. I ceased communication with Patrick, but responded to a few Snapchats he sent. As time passed, we would argue about it intermittently. I reached out to Patrick months later, expressing how uncomfortable I felt that night. He didn't reply, and I ultimately declined to attend their wedding, as it felt too uncomfortable now. As the months continued, our arguments escalated, and my anxiety surrounding the topic intensified. John began to think my anxiety stemmed from questioning my attraction to Patrick. In reality, my only doubts were about how to convince John that nothing was there at all. Many of these arguments occurred while under the influence, and I said and did some foolish things that seemed wrong but stemmed from sheer anxiety about being in that situation. One night, while drinking, I made a comment about imagining kissing Patrick, thinking that in my intoxicated state, he would understand that it was so far outside of my possibilities that I couldn't even visualize it. I explained to John that when a picture of Patrick appeared on social media, I looked at it to comprehend why we were still discussing him, attempting to see if I ever found him attractive, even though I knew I had no feelings for him and would continue to have no feelings for him. John interpreted these comments as evidence that I was unsure, and the arguments persisted. Since John sometimes struggles with low self-esteem, and since I didn't help the situation by being neurotic and doing foolish things without any real meaning behind them, it became ingrained in his mind that there must be something more, as the arguments continued. He knew I wrote a book as a teenager about two boys falling in love. I wrote it because I didn't feel those emotions neither for Patrick nor anyone else. He saw a comment on the book's website from years ago that claimed it was about a friend. However, the truth is I had built a decent following on the website from writing it, and I didn't want to feel like a fraud, so I pretended I had some kind of relationship when I didn't. The book was entirely fictitious and came from a lonely gay kid who wrote about the type of relationship with the kind of person to whom I would have been truly attracted. Because a scene in the book resembles the moment when Patrick attempted to kiss me, John has read this and struggles to believe that the book was not inspired by Patrick in some way. Recently, he went through my old Tumblr and found quotes that suggested lingering feelings for someone and similar sentiments, words that I reposted simply because I liked the quotes or because I was trying to affirm myself for being in my 20s and still feeling nothing for someone. They were not directed at anyone in particular. There may be more complexities to this situation that I cannot fully articulate, but that encapsulates why my partner believes there must be some level of attraction towards my friend. I can understand why he might be suspicious, especially given our history, but the reality is that there has never been anyone else. The guy made me believe in soulmates and all those cliched notions. I am unsure if there is any advice that can be offered. I might just be shouting into the void, as I am at a loss for what to do and feel like I am grasping at straws now. However, if anyone can think of anything, I would greatly appreciate it. Story 4. She 22F. Cheated on me with her ex, I 24M. Forgave her and then I cheated on her. Our background, I 24 male. Work as a sales manager earning $60,000, and my girlfriend, 22 female, works as a high-end escort and social drinker at a club. She developed an interest in me while I was still heartbroken over a girl I had been pursuing over a year ago. Initially, she wanted to exclusively have a physical relationship, but I became emotionally attached, and she reluctantly allowed me into her life. After some time, she accepted me, but 5 to 6 months in, while I was visiting my parents out of state, she called her ex to come over and spend the night. She endured sexual abuse from her stepfather during her childhood and has had no family since she turned 18. Her ex-boyfriend helped her heal to some extent and holds a special place in her heart, but did not invest much effort in their relationship. Naturally, I was devastated. I discovered this because I had sensed her behavior was becoming distant and went through her text messages. We attended a friend's event together, and when her ex arrived, she went down to greet him. With me, however, she was unable to show affection, expressing that her clients might notice. Afterward, we returned, and I confronted her. She responded, "This is just how I am. What are you going to do?" So I decided to leave her. A few days later, she called me back, and I was vulnerable and forgave her, allowing her back into my life. Beyond the fact that we cannot openly declare our relationship, when I return home from work, she rarely smiles since she is preoccupied with applying her makeup for work. She often runs late, which frustrates her. Our daily routine consists of me coming home, helping her prepare her bags for work, selecting her clothes, assisting her with food, ordering a cab, styling her hair, and helping her put on her clothes and jewelry. After she leaves for work, I tidy up the house and tackle chores. When she returns, she wakes me to assist in removing her makeup and accompanying her while she showers. I work from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., and she works from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., often until 3 or 4 a.m. If I miss a call while she is on her way home, she becomes upset. Sometimes she gets angry when she is drunk, and when I am tired due to lack of sleep, she also gets mad. If I take time for myself, she is angry. She verbally abuses me and even physically strikes me. I have spent an excessive amount of money on her to the point of accumulating debt. However, she spends just as much, if not more, as she earns between $20,000 and $30,000 each month. She occasionally sleeps with her clients, which I was aware of from the beginning, and I insisted I was fine with it, although I obviously cannot cope well with it. We frequently attend clubs and events together, but she rarely stays by my side because, technically, she is supposed to be single due to her profession. She constantly engages in conversation with other men who are her friends or previous friends with benefits. I feel invisible. We traveled to Thailand a few months ago during my birthday month for a music festival, and I made reservations for a nice dinner for her. On the first day, she wanted to smoke marijuana, so I contacted a friend who provided free joints. We went to his place, and she smoked while I wore a mask, but it was overwhelming for me, resulting in a headache and vomiting. Consequently, I spent the entire trip in the hotel, causing us to miss our prepaid dinner, and she was irritated with me while I was sick. Throughout the relationship, I have felt unappreciated and uncared for due to her lack of enthusiasm and effort. Yes, she has given me gifts, such as designer perfume, and took me to dine at Gordon Ramsay's restaurant for my birthday, and our intimate life was fulfilling, but I struggle with climaxing, which frustrates her. When she gets angry, she tells me to pack my belongings and leave, treating me as if I were insignificant. Even when I attempt to communicate or explain that her reasons for being upset seem unreasonable, like me being tired, she frequently tells me to gather my things and go. I wake up at 7:30 a.m. for work, come home, assist her in getting ready, take care of chores, then sleep and wake up between 3 and 4 a.m. when she returns home, spending time with her before going back to bed around 5 or 6 a.m. Naturally, I feel sleepy and have less energy, which makes her angry. I wish to use my weekends to complete my DJ course and meet people to sell insurance, but she constantly claims that I am abandoning her, making me feel guilty for wanting to leave her side. I have big dreams and feel held back. Here lies my mistake. I began entertaining and texting other women, both casually and sexually. I am conventionally attractive, so it is not unusual for women to reach out, but I typically ignore them due to my loyalty. However, feeling so constrained and unappreciated led me to engage with them. I met with some women to discuss selling insurance, and when they flirted with me in person, it felt wrong, so I halted it. Yet similar situations occurred with other women. At clubs, where I also work as a promoter, many girls try to dance with me and flirt, and while I generally avoid them, I recently allowed myself to engage. Last night, she accessed my phone and scrutinized all my messages. Initially, she laughed at how absurd it seemed and took screenshots to share in her group chat with other girls, many of whom are cheaters and escorts. However, after a while, she began to break down and cry. I admitted that I should not have done it and explained my reasons, but she accused me of guilt-tripping her and expressed confusion about what to do next. I still love her and requested her forgiveness while assuring her that I would do anything to regain her trust. We have a trip planned next week with several mutual friends, including some of the girls from her group chat. However, a part of me feels that I should let go of this emotional baggage. In fact, part of me feels numb. While I was crying, something in my head echoed, "Why are you crying? This is revenge. She never loved you." I was diagnosed with dysthymia and antisocial personality disorder when I sought therapy for my anger issues in 2020. I attended therapy weekly, which softened me. I used to exhibit aggression and have thoughts of violence, which I still experience but repress. However, while crying, I can still smile, almost as if I feel nothing, and my actions feel automatic as though I am pretending to behave like a normal person. To summarize, I dated an escort who emotionally and physically cheated on me, had her ex visit. I forgave her, but I feel restricted, unappreciated, and mistreated. I emotionally cheated texting. I still love her but feel uncertain whether I should prioritize myself or continue this relationship. I realize that this may sound like a fantasy and is difficult to believe, yet I assure you it is entirely true. Story 5. My F24 girlfriend, F22, broke up with me today. I'm lost. Can I save us? I, F24, have been dating my girlfriend, F22, for nearly 8 months now. Well, it will be 8 months on my birthday in a few days. The primary issue in our relationship has consistently been communication, and I take responsibility for that. It largely stems from trauma, but I find it extremely difficult to express my preferences, whether it's about choosing pizza or sushi for dinner, or whether I feel comfortable with her watching a particular show instead of spending the evening together. It's challenging to articulate, but it feels like there's a barrier blocking my words from coming out. What if I prefer sushi, but she wants pizza and feels obligated to choose sushi because of me? What if I express my desire to spend the evening together and she feels like I'm controlling her, making her unable to decide what to do? I constantly have these trivial questions swirling in my mind, overanalyzing every nuance. I know it's unhealthy, but overcoming this has proven difficult for me. My girlfriend, on the other hand, is quite different. If she wants something, she simply states it. She communicates about everything and is incredibly honest. It truly surprised me at first, as I have never encountered someone like that before. There is never any ambiguity with her. However, she has struggled with generalized anxiety. A few months ago, she found it hard to enter stores, and even a few years ago, leaving her house was a challenge. Now, she is capable of taking public transportation and going into bars. I am incredibly proud of what she has been able to overcome. Anyway, we moved into our first apartment together last November, and things were going fairly well since then. Sure, we had a few arguments, mostly regarding communication, I admit, but we were just like a typical couple, and we never discussed breaking up. If I ever mentioned it, she always said everything was fine between us, that she was happy, and that it was hurtful for me to even suggest that. 2 weeks ago, I was diagnosed with mononucleosis, which was honestly terrible. My tonsils became so swollen that breathing was difficult, drinking was nearly impossible, and eating was out of the question. Even mashed vegetables were too hard to consume. I had a high fever and hallucinations. I vomited every time I woke up, and my mouth was filled with mucus that was nearly impossible to clear. I went to the emergency room twice in 2 days due to a suspected abscess in my tonsils. It affected me physically, but more significantly, it impacted me mentally. I was terrified of dying while simultaneously wishing to end my own life. My throat was so swollen that I didn't recognize my own reflection. I couldn't speak, and no one understood what I was trying to say. I felt so stupid. I needed help for everything because of my lack of energy. I felt like a monster, like a parasite, like a gigantic larva, as though I only deserved death. During this time, my girlfriend cared for me, but I felt so terrible that I pushed her away. I had arguments with her over her not taking enough care of me, while simultaneously feeling such embarrassment that I wanted her to leave so she wouldn't witness me like that ever again. Nothing I said made any sense. I was even jealous of her for being able to eat while I struggled to drink water. I know I was a horrible person during this time, and I accept that. I just feel so ashamed of myself. On Monday, I was so humiliated by my condition that I chose to return to my parents' home. I told her that I wanted her to reclaim her life, and that I wished to heal away from anyone's gaze. I suppose I was also seeking the comfort I experienced as a child when I was sick, with my parents close by. I realize I am too old for this, but at that moment, it felt like the right decision. I was simply so frightened and ashamed. She was not pleased with my departure, saying it was immature and that I could stay in our home where she would continue to care for me. I asked her if she would leave me if I went away. She said no. So I went to my parents' house and things improved. I drank plenty of water and was able to eat again, even though it was initially complicated. However, this also led my girlfriend to reflect on our relationship. We communicated throughout the week, and I learned that she was having doubts. She began going out frequently with friends to restaurants, bars, and shows. I was happy for her because it was many new experiences, but I also felt sad about missing them. It hurt. We had never dined at a restaurant due to her anxiety. Going to bars was something we had never done. In December, she managed to visit the city center where we live, and I was thrilled to witness that I was just so proud of her. As the days progressed, I was improving significantly while I sensed her drifting further away from me. I returned today, thinking I would do anything to salvage our relationship, but she broke up with me first. She said I lacked fundamental communication skills, which was a deal breaker, and after 5.5 days of contemplation, she was certain about her choice. She was not willing to wait for me to improve. My heart shattered and I cried for hours. She always told me that out of all her past relationships, I was the one who contributed the most, the one who made her the happiest. She had been broken up with in all her previous relationships, and she struggled with acceptance. I know it was difficult for her, but it seemed so easy for her this time, even though she asserted it wasn't and that she still loved me. Now I am at a loss about what to do. I graduated last summer, yet I still haven't found a job. I prevented myself from seeking employment outside my city. I studied 3D and visual effects, and my city is not one with abundant opportunities, simply because I knew she would not have been able to follow me elsewhere. I moved in with her about 2 months ago, and we worked hard to make our place a home. I even considered taking a day job if it meant we could be together. She is already discussing leaving our apartment and continuing our lives as friends, because, as she puts it, we get along so well that it would be a waste, and she doesn't want me out of her life. It feels so surreal. I'm turning 25 in less than a week, and I was so eager to celebrate my first birthday with her. Now, I don't even know if I can celebrate at all. I cannot sleep. I spend my time crying, and I just want to break down that wall that hinders me from speaking. All I wish is for her to believe in us and to try to save our relationship, but it feels like within a week, there is an entirely different person standing in front of me, and it hurts immensely.